the hardest part is to break the little habits, so especially distance. So if you are used to work every day, of course, you're talking to people, you don't think about the 1.5 or 2 meters.
Okay, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Thomas. Thank you for inviting us. So for everyone, my name is Thomas, one of the founders of ProGlove. What we're doing is actually we're making smart gloves for the industrial world. So if you work in a logistics environment or in a manufacturing environment, you have to document almost everything you're doing. So at the moment, you're taking a little scan pistol, scanning something, getting a feedback from somewhere, then you're building in the part. And we basically built the scan pistol into a glove. So you have a little module here, that's a mark with a little display. So you see information there, you're scanning with the mark, and then you can use both hands to take the part and immediately build it in. That saves you roughly 3 to 4 seconds per item in your process. But in a typical BMW manufacturing world, you have to scan roughly 1,000 times per car, and you're building 1,000 cars a day. So it's 1,000 times 1,000 times 3 to 4 seconds. And that's the money they save with our product. As a company, we are 5 years old, or 5.5 years, roughly 200 people now. We have an office here in Munich. That's actually our Munich office. As you see, because of Corona, lots of people are still in home office, but some people are here. So office in Munich, we have a little office in Belgrade and in Chicago. Selling basically to the whole world, specifically Europe and North America, automotive, so BMW, Audi, Volkswagen, but also classic logistics, so DHL, big supermarket chains, stuff like this. I've been one of the founders, or I still am one of the founders. I've led the company, so I've been the CEO of the company for the first 4 years. And then as a founding team, we basically said, okay, we need to professionalize our management. So we hired professional outside management. We have a new CEO now, Andreas, who's great. And me personally as a founder, I try to help inside the company everywhere. So I'm still full-time here at ProGlove, and we call it Founder as a Service. So that's my role at ProGlove.
Nice. Very cool. Congratulations, because we talked, you were a speaker 2 years ago at our conference, and I remember there were 50 employees at your company. Now it's 200.
Yeah.
So congratulations again. So, I mean, we invited you because ProGlove is also now trying to make workspace safer. So can you give us a little description about what you came up with to make workspace safer, and how maybe you can describe how you came up with the idea?
Yeah, sure. So because of Corona, so at the moment we are still, or overall, we are producing the stuff still in our office. So we have a little production team that actually works in shifts and produces stuff. When Corona started at the beginning, we actually also had a problem. Okay, how can we keep our employees safe? And what we saw most of the time were the hardest part is to break the little habits, so especially distance. So if you are used to work every day, of course, you're talking to people, you don't think about the 1.5 or 2 meters. So, and breaking these little habits, that's what we thought about the most in our own production. And what we built basically is we built a feature in our app and also in the glove that basically just detects, are you too close? So if you're not, if you're too close, so you don't keep the 1.5 or 2 meters, then you get a little warning on your Android phone or on your glove that you're wearing. So that's a little thing we saw in our production that helped a lot in our production. And then we did go outside and basically offered it to our customers for free at the moment. So just everyone who uses ProGlove can also use this product, this feature, to stay safe. And we really think it's about these little habits, so breaking these little habits, and that makes actually this a good product.
Okay, great. I mean, you talked about saving money for your customers, and keeping employees safe also means to keep them at work, basically. Is that something that's also important for your clients? Is that a calculation, or is it more like something, it's a feature that comes with the glove?
I think it's always about money. That's the nature of business at the end, and you don't want to have disruptions in your production. And we saw it also here. So if our production team it's worked in a confined space, so there no other teams can actually interact with the production team. The production team itself is grouped in 3 groups, so that if we have an infection, actually we can still produce. And I think that's also the topic for every other manufacturer or logistic company. You want to keep on doing your stuff. You want to make logistic services, or you want to build stuff, even if you have an infection. So keeping your production going, that's the most important part. And that's why also little ideas like ours can help there.
Perfect. Wonderful. Thanks. Thank you so much. I would suggest that we go on with the next panelist, and then we can have a common discussion afterwards. Thank you, Thomas. So next panelist to introduce their product company is Johannes Kroizer. I already introduced you, so without any ado, I would give the stage to you, Johannes, and thanks for being part of this.
Thank you. Yeah, I have a short presentation because we are building small devices. Yeah, so my name is Johannes Kroizer. I'm founder and CEO from Cosinuss, and we do in-ear wearables for healthcare application and medical areas. So we developed since 2011 a technology called Ear Connect, where we're measuring inside the ear canal different vital signs in a very high precision. The technology is based on 3 pillars. On the one side, the sensor technology itself. So here we have the highest accuracy of the input. Then we have high precision algorithms and data analytics based on this very accurate raw data. And the third pillar is the data visualization, which makes sense out of this data, because, for example, heart rate itself doesn't make sense. You need your baseline, you need something like that to know that you're now out of your normal area. Yeah, and all of these 3 pillars are also, as we have full access to each component, we're able to integrate it also in other devices or in other solutions for that. What we're measuring 4 out of 5 vital parameters. So like I said, heart rate, respiration rate, core body temperature, and oxygen saturation. The 5th vital parameter is blood pressure. So this is under development until now, and now in some studies, but not at the moment available. And these 4 vitals, or the vital parameters itself, this is what normally a doctor, a physician, somebody is taking if they want to know the status of the health, of fitness, or if you're getting sick or something like that. And it's a small device in the ear and not a wired solution for each parameter, one device for each parameter. And with this, we're meeting the challenges what we have today, even before Corona. So on one side, everybody is living in a mobile world. So everybody is moving around, not only staying at the same place. Everything is remote. You don't have to go to the clinic. It can be remote. It can be, you can work from home and something like that. And for this, you need a continuous monitoring. You need comfortable sensors and real-time measurements to show the data to somebody else, to your relatives, to your family, to the doctor, or something like that. And the requirements of these applications are always, you need objective data. They have to be reliable, of course, accurate, medical grade, and of course, continuously to be able. So, and I will show you now what we're using here at the moment with some very big studies with COVID patients. So we have our sensors inside the ear, which are with COVID patients who are at home. They are positive tested, but at home because they don't have heart symptoms. They will get monitored 24 hours a day. And then we transfer the data to a small gateway, which is connecting to the mobile network. So it's plug and play. You only have to plug it into the power and then it's working. And then sending all this data to a server where we have a dashboard, and then the clinics can see the data, the vital parameters of the COVID patients. In real time, they can make telephone calls with them, or even call the ambulance if it's if they're in a dangerous area. And here, the big advantage is for COVID patients, the medical staff is taking care about temperature. That's what everybody knows. They're taking also care about the oxygen saturation, so it's pulse oximetry. And here we see that this COVID patients, they have a really low oxygen saturation, which is normally in a dangerous area of what you normally have. But they still feel fine. And this is one of the biggest problem, what at the moment worldwide science says. The problem is these COVID patients don't feel as bad as they are, or as the vital signs show. And that's why even a lot of people are going too late to the clinic, and they are coming there in a very bad, or they're in a very bad situation there. So this is what we using there, like I said, with real COVID patients, and it's a little bit sometimes scary to see data from these people, of course, anonymized and something like that. We don't see the real values, but as we take care about the technical stuff, we also see some values there. And this is something, which scares you a little bit. So what we are doing, we do it in a convenient way to have these vital parameters for COVID. For this, we also have applications in the medical area, worker safety, firefighters, everywhere where it makes sense to monitor people continuously and convenient. Like I said, our company is now, so we founded in 2011. We're now 30 people in Munich. And yeah, I'm happy to share, to discuss with you all the topics.
Very good. Thank you so much, Johannes. Just like to have a few quick questions before we start the podium. What is in you, because you're really into hardware, but then you were also telling us a lot about real-time service, remote access, and so on. What is more important for you? Is it software or hardware? What is a bigger business case for you?
The business case is the one thing, but let's say start with the most important thing is that you get very good raw data, so a really good input data. And then if you have this, so it's normally you say shit in, shit out. And if you have really good data input, then it's very easy to build on this a lot of different business cases, because then you are able to build on it business cases. Otherwise, it's some estimation. You try with machine learning to try to find some patterns or something like that, but it's always not something above it. So this is the baseline, what you need. And you need a really good technology, really good data. And then based on it, you are able to do the data interpretation. And this is then for sure, this is software and these are the services.
Okay. Because I think like Thomas, I think that you have the glove now as a device, but as far as I see it, you're also now getting more into software services. How is it for you? Like, because you have the glove, but are you developing the company more into software services now?
Yeah, absolutely. So we started as a hardware company, and the hardware is very useful, and we're still selling lots of the hardware. But the hardware is also a great platform for better software. So we basically started to build on top of our hardware specific software layers for our customers, especially in logistics, to see the processes, to actually find out where is a process not perfect and how can we change that process. So we're also basically using the data from the worker to make the process better. And we are building that at the moment. So we're trying to develop from a hardware startup to a software grown-up, kind of.
Okay, great, thanks. That brings me directly to Nigel, because I know that Nigel. Thank you, Johannes. We will pick up the discussion after Nigel presented. So Nigel, I know you are also a lot into sensors and also data and analytics. So I think that's a perfect moment for you to give us some insights in your work.
Sure, yes. I've got a little presentation which I'll try and share with you, if I may.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see how this goes. Let's get this working.
Yeah, looks good.
Okay, even bigger. Okay. Hopefully you can, yeah. Okay, so I work for a company called Plextek, and we are a technology consulting company. So unlike some of the other companies, we don't necessarily develop our own products. We very much sort of take on commissions from companies who come to us with particular needs and requirements. But we've been around for about 30 years working in the Cambridge technology cluster. We're a sort of specialist electronic engineering company. A lot of experience around sensors, data collection, communications, and as far as the radar systems. We've done a lot of work in defense historically, but now we're doing a lot more in consumer products and medical and healthcare and related areas. We're about sort of 70 people, so we employ a fairly wide multidisciplinary group of people, most of them with engineering qualifications. In fact, if I look at the 70 people in the company, I think 69 of them have engineering qualifications and one has a biochemistry degree. And I'll say I am the one with a biochemistry degree. So my background, I've come through the biotechnology route. And my interest, therefore, is particularly looking at products that are going to be beneficial to patients, particularly patients suffering from a variety of diseases. And I'm enjoying working in the medical device sector because it's much easier to bring tech products to the market, whereas drug development can take a fairly long time. Our other kind of claim to fame is we are ISO 13485 qualified, which means we can develop products through right through to the market. So unusually, actually, we do have one or two products that we have partially developed. So I'd like to give an example of one here, so demonstrating some of the wearable technology that we have. So this is a product that was originally developed through a defense contract, and it's essentially a wearable tech for the early detection of noise-induced hearing loss. So it's a very common problem, particularly in the military sector, but also an increasing concern with people wearing headphones and playing loud music through earphones is tinnitus and noise-induced hearing loss. There is no effective treatment for noise-induced hearing loss, and all you really do is kind of alleviate the symptoms. So as soon as you know you're getting it, you stop exposing yourself to loud noises and hope that it doesn't get any worse. But there are actually very early signs you can detect, and those are what are called audio-evoked potentials, or auditory brainstem response. So these are signals that are generated within the brain in response to auditory stimulus. And it's possible to pick up these signals essentially using an EEG system. And what we've done effectively is to build that EEG system into a set of earphones or around the ear headphones, so we can pick up those auditory evoked potentials. The product's going through field trials at the moment, actually in a military setting, but the idea is to be able to identify changes in what we describe the fingerprint of your auditory brainstem response. And then any changes in that auditory brainstem response are an indication of your worsening auditory capabilities, in other words, loss of hearing capabilities. So those types of early warning signals, that information is readily apparent through our system, much more so than you can detect personally. And the sort of standard hearing tests that are available really don't sort of pick up something like hidden hearing loss. So hidden hearing loss is a situation where you can't really hear things in a crowded room. I'm sure we've all been in that situation, a kind of cocktail party or tap party, where you can't hear other people's conversations. And that's incredibly hard to pick up that kind of hearing loss. But auditory evoked potentials are a way of detecting these. And these are techniques that are used clinically at the moment, quite widespread. But what we've done essentially reduce it to practice and have a very sort of simple form factor that can be used in a consumer setting. Anyway, so I mean that's just a kind of indication of some of the wearable technology we have. But as I say, my particular interest is looking at how wearable technology can help patients, and particularly with response to the COVID-19 crisis. So my real concern is how to avert that kind of sort of catastrophic consequences of what I'm seeing as a second wave of infection. I think there's a real concern that second wave is coming through. Clearly, we know a lot more about the disease. We learn a lot more about how to treat it. But really, at the moment, in the absence of an effective vaccine, and I used to work on vaccines, so I'm fairly sanguine about the likely outcome of vaccine trials. At the moment, we have no real effective ways of treating or of maintaining our society in the face of a COVID-19 crisis without the types of lockdown and quarantine processes we've been through. So I think sort of technologies that can enable patients to understand when they are infected and therefore can practice more effective quarantining, social isolation, and social distancing are going to be incredibly important. So my belief has always been, and this is before the COVID-19 crisis, that there are enough different types of sensors that can pick up information, very basic physiological parameters that can be used to give a very holistic picture of one's health. So the idea is by picking up a whole range of different types of physiological parameters, we can generate that sense of the well-being of a person by putting it through complex algorithms and trying to identify this or subtle changes or combinations of changes, which may, for example, be an increase in body temperature, increase in heart rate, changes in sleeping patterns, and so forth. And that, we believe, can give a very effective early indication of possible infection by COVID-19. I think if we can do that, then we can have sort of 4 likely outcomes. So one is to provide individuals with very effective information, so they know what to do in terms of social isolation, quarantining. Perhaps even more usefully, you can start looking at remote patient monitoring. Again, a large number of patients don't necessarily have severe symptoms, have symptoms that require visits to A&E or doctor's surgeries. So to be able to monitor those patients in the real world, in the comfort of their own home, is incredibly important. And wearable devices that can manage that, I think, are going to be incredibly useful in terms of managing the situation, so as to avoid the health services getting swamped by essentially by people who have minor diseases coming in looking to speak to doctors. And then in terms of more general picture, the idea of sort of aggregating the data can give some very information about the sort of trends within the population, and finally being able to identify geographical hotspots from the information being generated by these types of wearables. And of course, all these things require a large number of people to be wearing these types of devices, reporting in, but there's room in the market for a whole range of different devices, I believe, that can report those kind of symptoms. And just to identify, there's a whole range of different physiological parameters down there. We're looking at a number of different types of parameters that we can then reliably use in combination in order to generate a very effective picture of holistic health, and particularly, are they going to be indicative of viral infections or bacterial infections, for example. And then the kind of the important thing then is kind of combining that information with a whole raft of data being generated from lots of other sources. And this is a slide we've been working on in terms of our kind of sort of concept of how we develop these things. And the idea is sort of trying to put together an electronic health information system, which brings in information from a whole range of different sources, wearable sensors being one of them, other types of medical devices, but whole sets of data from electronic health records, historical and new pharmacy data, and then using that information to start doing either just helping in terms of the clinical operational activities of the medical service, but also very importantly being very predictive in terms of being able to predict the likely outcomes of patients with particular diseases. So that's kind of where we're at the moment. We're sort of looking at the various different physiological parameters we can measure. We're looking at how we integrate those into particular sensors and what form factors those wearable devices might be, with the idea of developing that kind of multi-layered, multifactorial electronic health information system. So very happy to take questions.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Nigel. Yeah, it's really interesting because I can see 2 different approaches. One is more like track and trace, right? So yeah. You try to track people and avoid other contact. or like Thomas showed with ProGlove to make sure that they don't even infect each other. And the other one is taking sensors, taking the data and trying to find out who's infected or not, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Right, so,
yeah. I think the problem with track and trace is you're always sort of running behind. So you're always sort of trying to catch up. You're chasing the infection, and depending on how effective your track and trace procedures are, you're always, 1 week, 2 weeks behind where the infection is moving. And it's a tough call. I mean, some countries have got it right, but it's going to be difficult, particularly in countries like the UK and Germany and France, where people travel a lot in big countries. It's going to be incredible.
Yeah, and since your company is more working on prototypes and research and consulting, not so much in a consumer or end product, I would like to ask you if you think, what is your opinion towards existing devices that are already out there on the market? Can we make use of the data they are generating to predict or to diagnose the disease? Or do we need completely new devices?
No, I mean, I think the devices are fine. I mean, I think you touch the kind of core of the problem, and that's with generating the clinical data. So these things need sort of very large studies in order to generate appropriate data that you can make conclusions from. So lots of devices out there, and lots of study at Stanford University, Imperial College London are doing lots of studies involving these devices. But until you start generating huge amounts of data, it's going to be very hard to be predictive. At the moment when actually the rate of infection is increasing, how do you generate information about progressive disease? So if you, for the sake of argument, had sort of 10,000 people wearing a particular device, recording body temperature or heart rate or whatever else, how long is it going to be before a few of those get a COVID-19 infection, and then you can trace the course of the disease and generate information? It is going to be incredibly difficult, I think.
Yeah, thanks. So maybe this is a good point for Johannes, because Johannes, as far as I understood, do you have a medical rating for your Cosinuss product?
Yeah, so we are medical certificated. The devices we are using now in the study, it's a consumer product because we were not able to get the medical certification until now. Mm-hmm. We have other medical devices, but our plan was to have this product end of the year ready to show it on the Medica, certificated. Yeah, but the coronavirus, I think, crashed all roadmaps like everybody had. So that's why we had to produce these devices with only consumer CE mark, which is fine for medical studies. And now we are doing the certification afterwards.
Okay.
Yeah.
So maybe if you could tell us a little bit in a few sentences shortly, like the difference between the medical product and the consumer product in terms of how it can be used. Like, I mean, now you're selling it or marketing it as a consumer product, but nevertheless, the technology inside is the same, right?
Yeah.
But what is the difference when you make it a medical product? Do you have better access to hospitals or?
Yeah, you need to have medical certification that a doctor is allowed to use this data. So this is the main difference. So a physician, a doctor, medical staff are only allowed to use data coming from a medical device, which makes a lot of sense. So this is the one thing. And the other thing is, of course, with the reliability of the data and with the studies you have to do with your devices, you show that the data is accurate enough, for example. And with consumer products, for example, lots of wristbands and so on, they do a lot of prediction, they do a lot of something, but it's never ever measuring the real vital sign at the moment. And this is the main difference, let's say, with consumer products. So you can always claim there anything with consumer products, but to make a diagnosis based on it, to have gifted the data to a doctor so he can do a diagnosis, it has to be a medical device. Otherwise, it's not allowed.
Okay. and so data gets generated and transferred to the doctor. So does the actual user know about it, and what does what information does the actual user get from it?
Yeah, so it's depending on which study. So there are different approaches. There are, let's say, the conservative approach is always that the patient doesn't know about the data, and only the doctor tells him, that he feels how he feels or how the data is. This is at the moment changing. So patients do want to know their data, and they do want to check it with Google or something like that and read something about, which is changing now. And then it's a little bit depending on who is doing the study. We have studies where the patients have one LED, and then it's green or red or yellow, and then they see the status. And on the other side, we have studies where the patients see all of their data as well, and then they even have some traffic light and something like that. But it's really depending on the doctor who is doing the study.
Okay, perfect. Thanks. It reminds me a little bit of Thomas ProGlove, because they also how does the user actually get the signal that that they are in the way or too close to the next coworker? Thomas, is it like the light goes on the glove, or is there vibration?
Basically, we have haptic feedback, audio feedback, and light feedback. So basically, everything you want to, it can do. And there's also a little display, so there's a big warning sign there. So you can't miss it, kind of. And that's the important thing in features like that. It's important that you keep the 1.5 meters. So you shouldn't miss it, and that's why we designed it, so you can't miss it.
And so if the alarm turns on, what is like the first reaction of people? Are they kind of afraid, or are they already like used to it and I have to take a step back? Or are they like, oh my God, no. What happened?
So maybe the first time they are like, okay, what's happening now? But after the second time they are like, okay, I have to take a step back. And that's also what we see, and that shows that it works, that you don't think anymore, you just take a step back. So you get the warning, you take a step back. And that's exactly what we wanted to do, basically, to break that habit and to keep distance.
That's wonderful. I think that's the big advantage of close-to-body technology, that it can become one of your senses. It becomes something you feel you're too close. And it's not something you have to actually read or whatever, but you feel it because it vibrates, or you see it somewhere in your sight. A little light goes on. Is there also a discussion about the data? Like, do people? Is that a topic? Data collection about the workers, or is it anonymous?
Not so for us. It's not in the COVID-19 context. So, and also we are not storing any distancing data. We just show, okay, you're too close, take a step back, and then the data is gone again. In other contexts where we store data, of course, we have a discussion, but even there, at the moment, we are not storing any privacy-related data or any personal data. It's always about the process. So at the end, you can't see one worker is doing that. You see, okay, that's your process, and that's what's happening in the process, and then they look at the process. So, of course, we know the discussion, but it's not that of a big topic in our product.
Nigel, do you have any insights in, how data gets handled? Are there issues? All these data, it's so private. How do you feel if you have the disease and you just learned about it, and then you also know the others also know it? Like, how is the social reaction to this? Can you tell us a little bit about this, like the society context?
Yeah, the issues about kind of privacy of data are becoming increasingly important and increasingly complex, I suppose. And we sort of first came across it through development of our wearable tech for the hearing loss. Because that sort of generates sort of significant data that is important, but not terribly critical, I guess, and not terribly interesting to other people. So there's certain obviously regulatory requirements to manage and process that data. But as soon as you start sort of kind of getting into interactive settings where you're talking about, you know, let's say alerting other people that you might have the disease or providing information about that you might have the disease, it gets incredibly difficult. And yeah, I think it's a real concern people have about the impact it is going to have on them. So at the moment in the UK, we have a sort of, you know, a track and tracing system whereby people, the contact tracers phone you up if you've been in the presence of somebody with the symptoms. And there's a lot of resistance to people actually picking that telephone up if they recognize the numbers, because they don't want to be contacted to be told they're going to have to quarantine and self-isolate. So even just sort of handling that kind of information is incredibly difficult. So you start getting the situation where you can generate this information, but there's not a lot you can do with it. But then in terms of kind of sort of processing it, yeah, that becomes incredibly important. How much of that is considered private? And do we move forward in the society to a situation where we're a bit more relaxed about that kind of level of privacy? And I guess I come from, you know, thinking that we are in a state of a global economic crisis, we're in a global health crisis, and where do concerns about privacy lie in that? And I'm not saying we should completely forget those concerns about privacy, but you know, the new normal might be very different to how it's been in the past, and we may have to we are accepting infringements on our personal freedoms, personal liberties, and is some relaxation about data privacy another infringement we have to accept? And personally, I'm fairly relaxed about it because I've given enough data already to Facebook and Google, whatever, so a bit of extra stuff isn't going to hurt me. But yeah, it's the real issue.
Yeah, so Johannes, do you think that this kind of data awareness, I mean, does it become part of our daily lives? Do you think, like, you know, people now using fitness trackers is the next step to have a virus tracker or health tracker in general? I mean, I'm wearing a fitness tracker at the moment. It has become my normal companion, but maybe is it the next step that it also tells me if I'm healthy or not? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I don't have any, but I have something in the ear. Yeah, it's a interesting question, because I think we are also in the area, we have on the one side healthy people, you know, and they don't want to become ill. On the other side, we have people who have a disease, if it's a COVID-19 or if it's something else. And if you have something, some illness, some problems, something like that, then you don't care too much about the privacy, because you see the benefit of the device, if you see it. And then you want to share it with your doctor, you want to share it with your family or something like that. If you are healthy and it's only, let's say, for you, and you want to learn if it's getting ill or something like that, if you have cardiovascular problems or something like that, then it's more, you're keeping more aware about the privacy, which is a little bit, let's say, strange, because it's normally, I would suggest that Nigel also said it, you don't want to have this, that other people know. Do you want to have that my company know that I'm ill? Perhaps not, I would say. On the other side, they are more open to share the data with the same diseases, or with, like I said, with the doctors, with the family, and something like that. And then there's a lot of things. Do I want to share it with Google, Apple, Facebook, and co? These are the other, let's say, all the other areas. And to be honest, I think it's really depending on the person on the one side, and really in which situation are they. And also, like Nigel said, we have now a new worldwide, a complete new situation. And especially in Germany, we had a lot of discussions about, do we have to skip the privacy laws for the pandemic and something like that? And there are a lot of things are now, allowed or not allowed, but they don't they are not thinking about, which was before not able. We were not able to do that.
Okay, like Before we come to the audience questions, Johannes, have you thought about, because you're already in the year, like a service or something that just informs you about your general health status? Because I know that you have this scoring system, right? You told us about it. So data, the raw data gets interpreted, it gets analyzed and made accessible to consumers. I mean, could you imagine a future where your assistant tells you, why don't you visit a doctor today? Because both of us, we know that maybe you're sick, something like this. Is that on your times, on your batch list to do?
It's on the roadmap. Actually, we had a study in February. It was a pre-study for a bigger study, where it was really, if we are able, or the study should show if we are able to predict cardiovascular diseases. There are a lot of scientific work around it, and we have collaboration with the university clinic here and something like that. And they develop algorithms to see that there's something wrong with your heart, and let's say give you the hint to go to your doctor. That's, let's say, makes a lot of sense, but for medical certification, it's quite difficult to get there, a certification that you have this indication and something like that. And then you have to run there a lot of studies over several years where it can show that you are able to see, let's say, to have the risk of getting ill, that you can measure it, predict it, however you call it. But on the other side, it completely makes sense because, let's say, non-medical or people like us, we see the vital signs, but we don't know if we are in a good area or not. Everybody knows it a little bit about temperature, I have fever or not. Everybody knows it a little bit about heart rate when they are doing sports. Normally, nobody knows what's the good value for oxygen saturation of the blood, which is a standard parameter. So this is where we need to do some interpretation or some visualization of where you are and where you should be, for example. But it's from the regulatory side, it's quite difficult. It's really, really difficult.
Yeah, I see it. Yeah, because we're inside of the medical area, so this is always very difficult.
Yeah.
Thomas, have you thought about adding more features to ProGlove or making your software a standalone thing? Have you thought about developing your business ideas more towards there or your features? Is there any plans, or do you stick with the industrial usage of the ProGlove?
So at the moment, we are sticking with industrial because it's a huge market. And at the moment, we are in a scaling phase of our company. So trying to get that product to everyone in the world, every logistics service, every manufacturing service. So hardware-wise, it's really scaling how to build 100,000 of these with the right quality. Software-wise, we are also, of course, sticking in the industrial thing. We have a platform that's called ProGlove Inside, where we try to use the data we are generating to really create value for our customers. So, and we are constantly innovating there. The interesting thing about industrial is there are lots of different use cases and small differences in the use cases. So every assembly process is kind of a little bit different. So you can adapt there. You can really innovate into small things and create value there. But really getting value out of the data, that's what we're working on.
Nice, very good. Anna, so maybe if you want to join us, Anna has watched the chat, and since time is passing so fast, I'm really interested in were there any questions from the audience, Anna?
Can I just make one point?
Yeah, sure.
Just forgot. So I think a lot of the discussion we've had is very much about essentially healthy people using wearable devices. And I think it does suggest to me that the most likely route into use of these types of technologies is for ill people. So in other words, using kind of remote monitoring of patients. So patients who are recuperating, patients who are at risk, and those kind of areas. I think that's likely to be a lot more acceptable in terms of general use by people and in terms of handling the data as well. Because that data could then be simply maintained between the patient and the doctor. So you can imagine a patient who is recuperating, is sent back home, and then his vital signs are monitored in a regular manner. And I can see a lot fewer sort of safety, a lot fewer privacy issues for that. And that may bring in then acceptability of the use, and that may be a more acceptable way of using these types of technologies.
Yeah, I mean, it's also a little bit reaching into the topic of telemedicine, I guess. Like you have this companion that's always with you, and yeah, I can imagine this. I think it's very realistic to have this kind of shared resource with your doctor.
Yeah.
And it's also, sorry, one point. It's also interesting to have your data when you're not ill. So you have your normal status, because you normally go to the doctor when it's, let's say, too late, because then you have something, and then you don't know where you were starting from. This is really something which is, at the moment, we do no prevention. Here we do have no value, and when normally we go to the doctor, and then he's measuring when it's too late. Then you don't know where you were started, and now you're here, or is it your normal values? Yeah.
Well, one of the areas we are looking at is using acoustic sensors to look at blood flow. One of the symptoms from COVID-19 is venous thromboses. So we can look at those types of events. So looking at ways of kind of embedding sensors into thrombosis socks and that type of thing, and looking at blood flows and being able to identify when blood flow changes significantly, which may relate to a thrombosis breaking off and impacting on different parts of the body. So I think with something like that, you can look at sort of sudden changes in a physiological parameter where you probably don't need a baseline, and you just look at that change. Yeah. That may be very significant. My son had COVID-19, and he had a superficial venous thrombosis, so nothing to worry about at all. But he's been on blood thinning medicines for a while just to make sure that disappears.
I'm super interested and excited in knowing about your vision for the future of wearables in context of Corona. And we go to this question, like the final question, after we had a look into our audience chat, I would suggest. So Anna, do we have some questions from the audience?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions from the audience, and then I would suggest also later on to move to open discussion, because data privacy is a very interesting topic, and maybe also audience can bring something in. And also people would love to shift a bit focus on how to really monitor, like how wearables can help with monitoring the COVID, not only for the hospitals and, for example, people who are from chronic diseases. Now, first question would be, what should we be on the looking for from each of the product companies like ProGlove or Cosinuss? Do you plan to launch new features or new products soon?
So do you, I mean, we talked about it. So where do you take your, like Thomas, you already told us that you are going into this industrial use cases, you're developing further there. But maybe Johannes, like, do you plan to have some new products in context of Corona? Is there something new coming up?
Yeah, of course. It's this device, what we were always, but we were planning it. It's not especially for Corona, but it's more, let's say, than this remote patient monitoring system, which now we had this change of mind that it makes sense to have remote patient monitoring and something like that. And here we will for sure have more efforts there. But it's not a real, let's say, a special product only for this. It's more that we are able to measure these vital parameters, and we were able to measure it before Corona, and now we are using it for COVID patients. So not a real, new product for that.
Okay, cool. If Anna, if you agree, I would shift the audience questions to the open discussion round, which we will enter after the pitches. And then we have more time to discuss, because we're a little bit running out of time. I'm super sorry, guys, in the audience, but we have this bigger format, and you can ask the questions, or Anna can bring them up in the open discussion round. I would like to take the remaining few minutes that we have to ask the panelists, like, what is your personal vision of the future in this kind of Corona times? I mean, imagine we have the second wave. Imagine we live maybe in a world where, yes, you are healthy and you have to track your health status, but maybe there's the next disease coming up, or there's the next danger. I think we have to get used to this. And how can you, as experts from these industries, from your perspectives, from your personal perspectives, where do you see the world and the business going? So, Nigel, what is your opinion towards this? Because you're from research, and where do you see this going?
That's a big question. That's a big question indeed. Yeah, I mean, there's a kind of sort of science fiction vision I have, I guess, of these types of kind of personal wearable monitors that are very predictive of that holistic type of health. And as we were sort of saying the other day, it has to be a kind of sort of aware and forget type approach. So it has to be something that is fairly inconspicuous. I don't think for wearing, even a watch is fairly obtrusive. The Apple Watch I've got, you can't wear at night time, has to be charged overnight, and they have sort of certain environments you can't go into. There are companies developing things like rings. I think there's the Oros ring that has a number of sensors built into it. I quite like that type of approach, and the idea of wearing a ring with a number of sensors built in that will generate some very useful information about your sort of physiological state and your overall sense of wellness, I think is very interesting. And something like that would, you know, track your health over a period of time, I can see being a thing of the future. So something that's unobtrusive, but gives that kind of sort of comprehensive data set and provides information to you in a personal sense, I think, rather than sort of supplying it to the rest of the world, would be the most sort of likely trend for me going forward.
Okay, thank you. Thomas, what is your, from more like this industrial workspace perspective, what is your idea of?
Yeah, so I'm not coming from health. So in general, I believe in a vaccine, and I hope it's going to be there in the next 12 months. And then everything will be at least calm down.
I'll have a chat with you in 12 months' time. And
yeah, we'll see. And maybe from an industrial or logistics world, it's kind of logistic is still booming. So we have customers that are actually growing 300% in the last quarter, kind of. So I think business-wise, we are okay. But if I look into the startup world, I see lots of startups at the moment really struggling because of COVID, especially travel startups, stuff like this. So there are lots of companies kind of dying because of the business environment we are in at the moment. Thankfully, we are kind of grown out of these kind of struggles. So maybe 3 years ago, we would also had a very, very, very hard time, but now we are kind of big enough to survive. So in the startup world itself, I see lots of cool ideas dying because of COVID. But on the other hand, there are also new ideas popping up because of the environment and because of the circumstances. So it's kind of, as a startup guy, it's kind of one crying eye and one laughing eye. Stuff is dying and stuff is popping up. We'll see.
Yeah, sorry, there's one thing for the startups. It's, for me, a lot of investors at the moment, of course, it's venture capital and so on, but they don't do any investment. Everybody in this crisis mode and try to keep all the money, and they are not investing. And this is really, I agree that it's on the one side, there are so many, of course, there are new options popping up or chances and so on, but there are a lot of good things. And now everybody is, try to keep the money and not investing into the future or in innovation or something like that.
Yeah,
that's for sure.
Okay, do you have some other vision or ideas for the future, Johannes? Like the final word for the panel discussion?
The final word, the final vision. No, so what we see, it's really that people now taking more care about their health, even if they're still healthy, that they, let's say, take a look at it and think about it. And I think everybody from us knows it. You're waking up, you have some pain in somewhere, and then you see, oh, do I have COVID or not, or something like that. So everybody is more thinking about his own body, about something like that. And even they start more to track, to see and to learn, to learn more about your healthy status and something like that, and what you can do to stay healthy and something like that. That's what we see, and I guess it will also grow because it makes a lot of sense. This is the one thing, and I hope that it will still remains, because it makes sense to know more about your body and not only going to the doctor if you really have a pain somewhere or something like that. So this is the one thing. The other thing is that I hope that even the medical certification will be more innovative, to be able that you have a medical device or you have some kind of tools to help people stay healthy, and do some kind of, even it's not called diagnosis, but to have some kind of analytics to show that the data makes sense or not, or something like that.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. I think that was a really interesting panel discussion, because we had the industrial view, we had the medical view, we have the research and even military view into one panel. I would love to take the discussion further. We can meet again in the open discussion later, and I wish all of you to stay healthy and to stay also productive and grow and develop. And thank you so much for being part of this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And now we keep running. I would ask all panelists to leave the stage, please, because now we are going to, I would ask Norma to enter the stage. I know that there's a little delay, so we take the time to introduce to the pitching rules. Every starter or every pitch participant gets 3 minutes to pitch, and then we take 1-2 minutes for questions if there are some from the audience, and that will give us 5 minutes per startup or per pitch participant. And Norma is here. I let her on stage.
Hello.
Hi, Norma. Maybe you want to check out if everything is working well. We are a live virtual event, so technical issues are occurring very often in this kind of format. So let's make sure that everything is running smoothly before we start the clock. Norma is head of IoT at German Bionic. It's located in Augsburg, Berlin, and Tokyo. And it's the first European manufacturer to develop and produce exoskeletons for use in industrial production. So I can see the presentation coming up. I'll leave the stage as well. And I stay here. Sorry, I don't know how to. Just go on. I would ask, I give the stage is yours.
Thank you very much. I'm super excited to be here tonight. Looking forward to all the discussions and questions coming up. My name is Norma. I'm head of IoT at German Bionic. We are, as said, the first developers and manufacturers for smart and adaptable exoskeletons for the industrial use. In addition to me, I also have my colleague Andrew with me, who's taking care of the chat in our virtual booth. So if you have any questions, just drop him a line, and he will gladly answer that. So I think we jump in. So even before Corona was impacting our lives, the need for lifting tools was already there, because MSDs, musculoskeletal diseases, are the leading cause for workers' disability, and that leads obviously to a lot of productivity loss, a lot of costs, but also to unhealthy and unhealthy workers, which is a problem, obviously. And just to give you some numbers, MSDs are, for example, 1/4 of sick days in Germany. So that's a quite significant number. And this will even get more severe over the years, since we all know the workforces are aging in the industrialized worlds. And now where Corona is coming in, I think the pandemic really was shining a light on those people working especially in the logistics sector, to make sure that we get the goods that we need. And I think we all kind of experienced the empty shelves during the Corona crisis. I mean, I think the toilet paper gag was kind of in every country where we stood in front of empty shelves. And this is just a symptom of how much pressure and strain was put on the supply chains across the globe. And in addition to that, obviously, there was a lot of people staying at home, lockdown even, that led to an incredible increase of e-commerce across the globe, which even puts more pressure and on the supply chains. So that all leads to, let's say, an increased throughput, and also the workers needed to work longer shifts. They had more repetition when they worked. And the problem there obviously was also that automation was not possible, because the crisis happened so quickly and no one could spin up a full automated process in a few weeks that were necessary. So workers were really on the forefront, filling in and ensuring that everything kept running. And so how we gonna help them dealing with the crisis, but also beyond, is that we developed our exoskeleton, our KreiX, and this slide here basically just shows how it works. So it's worn like a backpack, and it relieves the pressure on the lower back. So things like back pain or back injuries are stories from the past.
You can also stream. Okay, thank you, Norma. Time is over. Thank you so much. As Norma said, you can visit them in their booth in the expo area, Ausstellungen. So, Anna, are there any questions? No questions? Okay, so then thank you, Norma. I would like to ask you to leave stage now.
Yep, thank you very much.
Thanks.